In the previous video, Captain Ri confirmed his suspicion that the accidents involving the trucks were intentional when Se-ri was being taken to the airport and some appeared. The man and his soldier ended up shot, leaving the protagonist in a desperate situation. I'm Nina and today's recap will be Crash Landing on You. This may be her last chance to get out of North Korea, but Se-ri couldn't leave two people who helped her so much injured. So when the woman is driving the vehicle, she decides to take them both to the hospital. At the scene, doctors warn that Ri Jong is losing a lot of blood and needs to go to surgery urgently. As it is a small hospital, there is no blood bank, so the protagonist is responsible for finding someone to donate. The soldier tries to explain to her that if she goes to the airport now, she might be able to catch the flight, but that is no longer her priority, and upon discovering that her blood type is compatible with the captain's, Se-ri offers to donate. While in the anguish of waiting for news of Ri Jong's surgery, the woman receives the clothes he was wearing and, upon unfolding them, discovers that the man had kept a photo of Se-ri in his things, the one she had taken for him. The passport. The protagonist is moved because, when she suggested they take one as a souvenir, he was arrogant, and in the end, he kept one in secret. Later, the surgery was completed successfully, and now we just have to wait for the captain to recover. While the man remains unconscious, we see Ri Jong in a performance he received a lot of applause from the audience, but when leaving the stage, it seems that the captain had lost his ground when he received the news that his brother had died in a car accident. So Ri Jong would have to return to his country, and while waiting for the boat to transport his things, a little girl asked if he could play a song on his piano. The man said yes, and for the first and last time, the captain played the song that he had created for his brother, who didn't even have the opportunity to hear it. When Ri Jong wakes up, the protagonist can't control his happiness when she sees him with his eyes open. However, the man doesn't understand why she's still in place. Frustrated at having almost lost his life and putting his soldier at risk, the man yells at Se-ri and says that she doesn't understand that she is always putting them in danger, that her efforts today were all in vain, and that the protagonist shouldn't be there anymore. So Se-ri decides to let him rest and leaves the room, then tells the medical team that the captain has woken up. When they are explaining the situation to her patient, the nurse comments that Ri Jong and his girlfriend were made for each other, as they have the same blood type, and so she can save his life. And the doctor adds that he thought the woman would faint from crying and that she must be in some other corner of the hospital crying at that exact moment. The captain ends up recognizing that he was very rude and goes to look for Se-ri. When he finds her, he apologizes for the things he said to her and adds that she wanted to go home so much that she should have done that. But the protagonist responds that at least once, she would have to protect him since the man did so much for her. In the end, the two end up kissing. In the next scene, we see Mr. Cho. He already knows that Ri Jong is involved in preventing the South Korean woman from ending her life and asks his men to call all the hospitals in the region so they can locate him. And Sung Joon is already nervous with so much worry about not having been able to find the protagonist yet. It turns out that the men he is paying to keep him in North Korea understood that they would have to stop the woman from returning to the South, no matter the cost. Whatever the cost, however, in truth, the man wanted her very much alive. Seo Dan goes with his mother to the village where Captain Ri lives, and at first Se-ri's friends are very harsh with women. However, after the bride's mother delivers facial products to the wives, they decide to help both of them find an apartment for Seo Dan to move into. Sung Joon has the car parked near the captain's house to see if one of the two appears at the scene and ends up coming across Seo Dan arriving. The man is surprised to learn that Ri Jong is the fiancé of this beautiful woman and how the two are waiting for the same person. Sung Joon offers her to wait in the comfort of his car with him. Back at the hospital, the nurse tells Ri Jong and the protagonist that she saw a couple kissing the night before, and she thought it was absurd. Se-ri sewed a heart on the captain's uniform to disguise the bullet hole, and the two agreed not to pressure each other about what happened the night before. Sung Joon and Seo Dan get along well. The man talks to her about marriage and says he knows how she feels since there was one that was arranged too, but it ended up not working out. The next day, Mr. Cho managed to locate where Ri Jong was being treated and went to the place with trucks full of soldiers. Luckily, Se-ri was outside at the time and managed to hide when she had the opportunity. He called Sung Joon to pick him up. In the captain's room, Mr. Cho reveals that he already knows that the protagonist is a South Korean and speaks as if Ri Jong had shot the engineering soldiers for no reason, but the man makes it clear that someone tried to cause an accident and he was simply protecting her. The captain questions how Mr. Cho is sure that the woman is not a spy and reveals that he knows that he discovered that the man asked someone to investigate her without the necessary authorization to do so. Of course, Mr. Cho didn't like the way Ri Jong spoke and ordered him to be arrested, but his father arrived at that moment and didn't allow that to happen. The protagonist returns to the hospital. The man who is going to pick her up hasn't arrived yet, and the woman needs to disguise that she is with a patient when Seo Dan passes by her so that she doesn't get into any more problems. And in the room, the bride notices the heart sewn into the captain's uniform. When she asks about it, Ri Jong says that she likes the protagonist and has no intention of deceiving Seo Dan. That's why she's telling her. The woman doesn't take it very well. She says that when Se-ri leaves, his feelings for her will disappear and that even with the news that he likes someone else, Seo Dan will continue with the wedding scheduled. Se-ri managed to hide until Mr. Cho left with the soldiers and got along very well with the patient. Then Sung Joon arrived and the woman got in the car. At the place where Sung Joon is staying, he says that everyone is happy with the news that the protagonist is okay. However, the woman doesn't believe that her brothers would say that and begins to distrust the man. Sung Joon even lies about the meeting that would declare the company's new heir. He says it was postponed, but we see in the next scene that the meeting actually took place and Se-hyang was elected through votes. And Se-ri's father ends up declaring that she lost her life due to the time she has been missing. At night, Seo Dan goes with his mother to a store to see her wedding dress. The owner brought a magazine from South Korea, which shows the models that are in fashion, and while browsing, the woman found an article talking about Se-ri. She rips out the page and goes to the hospital to confront her fiancé to find out if he was hiding the truth from her. Meanwhile, Ri Jong is searching the hospital's cameras for any sign of the protagonist, as she simply disappeared after Mr. Cho was the visitor, and he ends up seeing the woman getting into Sung Joon's car. Then the man calls his uncle by Seo Dan, who discovers that the vehicle is being used for something in an inn that has been closed for a while, which is a bit suspicious. At Sung Joon's house, the protagonist wanted to call the captain to let him know that she is fine. However, the man doesn't let her and says that the best thing she can do at the moment is to stay away, as Ri Jong could end up losing her life. Life for Se-ri's selfishness, these words weigh on her mind. Seo Dan confronts the captain, and he confesses that he already knew who she really was and that he is helping her hide in the north. However, she will soon go to the south, and Ri Jong makes it clear that he is willing to lose everything, even his life, to help her. But Seo Dan is also willing to do anything for the one she loves and says that if he does something dangerous, the woman will act. In the next scene, we see the protagonist's past. When she traveled to Switzerland, Se-ri no longer had any desire to live. However, something changed within her when she heard a song being played on a piano on the edge of a lake. That melody changed her mind about her life and saved her. Over the years, the protagonist performed a snippet for several people who knew a lot about music, but she never found anyone who knew her. Returning to the captain, the hospital director said he could use anything he needed, and the man asked to borrow an ambulance to go after Se-ri. But as he almost ends up falling off a cliff on the way, he decides to go back to recover in the hospital. The next day, Sung Joon calls Ri Jong to let her know that he is with the protagonist, that the woman is fine, and that the man doesn't need to spend his time looking for her. The captain becomes even more nervous after the call, and one of the soldiers who always picks on Se-ri says that the woman must have asked her boyfriend from the south to call because she doesn't have the courage, and Ri Jong gets excited, saying that the man doesn't think it's her boyfriend and that the soldier is saying something he doesn't know. The captain shouted so much that the patient in the next room appeared to ask him to speak a little quieter, and when she discovers that he is the man the protagonist likes, she starts saying that the woman had already told her about him. Ri Jong is surprised that Se-ri made such a quick friend in the hospital, and even more so when he discovers that the protagonist had said that he was her favorite person. When the patient leaves, the man has a smile that none of his soldiers have seen before. As soon as he is discharged, the captain finds out where Se-ri's house is through the different power cables in the middle of the forest. Returning to the protagonist, she remembers when Ri Jong taught her that in all hotel rooms there are bugs, and when searching hers, she discovers several. Afterwards, the protagonist takes what she collected to Sung Joon and the man who helps him. She sits down with the two and wants to know how they plan for her to go to the south. The plans don't seem to exist, so Sung Joon proposes that the two get married with their fake names, so they can leave the place with a foreign passport without looking suspicious. Meanwhile, Seo Dan's mother invites the captain's soldiers to eat and drink with her. One of them ends up getting a little upset and talks all about Se-ri. The others even tried to stop her but couldn't. Returning to the protagonist, as it's Christmas Eve, Sung Joon invites her to dinner with him and ends up making the marriage proposal official with a ring. In fact, the man says he never stopped thinking about her, and the dinner is interrupted when Ri Jong turns off the house lights. The man takes out all the guards around him, despite not having recovered 100%. Before leaving, Sung Joon tells the protagonist that if she decides to stay with the captain, his fiancée will denounce him and he will lose his life, so the best Se-ri can do is stay away from the man. When he leaves the house, Ri Jong says that he went to the place to look for her and that although he failed in his plans to take her to the south, he will find another way. However, the protagonist makes it clear that he won't do it again, and she doesn't want to take any more risks. She tells him about the marriage proposal she just received and asks the man to leave. After a while, the woman continues on the street crying, thinking about how cold it is and that her loved one could end up freezing, so she decides to take the first car she finds and go after him. When she finds him, Se-ri says that nothing has changed in her decision to follow Sung Joon's plan and that they will no longer be able to see each other. However, when the woman goes to start, she discovers that the vehicle is out of gas and they will have to spend a while more time together than she had planned. The two go to a school close to where they are so they can light a fire and warm up. In the next scene, we see Mr. Cho talking to a man about the military director. It seems that this director wants to remove Captain Ri's father from power, and if Mr. Cho brings information that helps him achieve this, they will succeed. So Mr. Cho gives the information to the military director that Captain Ri is sheltering a South Korean woman and asks the man to get approval for an investigation that will bring down Ri Jong's family. Returning to Se-ri, she takes care of the captain, who has a fever, and asks how he and Seo Dan met and if they attended the same school. But the man says no, it was a marriage arranged through his parents. Meanwhile, the listener is drinking in front of his house, watching the stars, and his wife approaches to ask what is happening, so the listener vents, saying that he let a man who treated him the way he deserved lose his life. And he is loyal to someone who treats him like an animal. He adds that if something happened to Captain Ri because of him, like what happened to his brother, the listener would not be able to forgive himself. Ri Jong is dreaming of a memory the day he gave the watch to his brother with the money from an award the captain had received. The accessory is the same as the one the protagonist had seen in the pawn shop. The luck of that soldier who opened his mouth to Seo Dan's mother is that the woman the next day didn't remember anything he said. Despite having written down some key words, she doesn't remember. She's just sure that if it's something shocking. The protagonist and the captain return to his house. However, as Mr. Cho is after the woman, he calls the wiretap to find out if the man has returned to the residence, and Manbok lies that the house is empty. Se-ri ends up bumping into the village's wives and taking advantage of meeting them. She decides to sell her engagement ring at the pawn shop and buy gifts to thank them for the advice and friendships they created. The protagonist took her brother's watch from the captain without knowing it to give it to him as a gift too. Meanwhile, the protagonist's right-hand man and another man who was happy that she was his boss continued trying to find her and took the audio they found with Se-ri's voice to the police to investigate. However, brother Se-hyung told the police that he did not recognize the voice and that it could not be his sister's, so the authorities ruled it out. So the two have another plan to find the protagonist's father and show him the audio of his daughter. At first, it doesn't go very well, as the men are waiting for him in the company's garage, and the one who appears first is Se-hyung. Then the man appears, but his son tries to silence the two men, and so his father ends up entering. But he heard the men inside shouting something about Se-ri and decided to go back and listen. Returning to the captain, he wakes up better after a long sleep, and when he leaves his room, the protagonist improvises a Christmas tree for him. Later, when the man is in the courtyard of his house, he receives a call from a number he hadn't saved, and when he answers, he hears Se-ri's voice. The woman tells her that she is leaving with Sung-joon and that she didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye. However, when Ri-jong asks her to tell him where she is, he says that it doesn't matter if she is far away or not, the man just wants to say goodbye. Amidst her tears at having two men point guns at her, the woman just repeats what they wanted her to say, and at the end, when she deviates a little from the script and says that she loves Captain Ri, one shoots up, and then the connection is disconnected. At that moment, Ri-jong's heart stopped, and tears fell from her face. It turns out that when she was returning home with the captain's gift in her hands, these two men appeared, pointing a gun at the protagonist, and took her away. In shock, the woman ended up dropping the gift and staying behind. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me. Until next time.